Hello my bookish friends, welcome back. I am Elizabeth, this is Reading Riley, and today I want to recommend some books about social horror. What is social horror anyway? I mean, there are so many subgenres of horror, which is amazing, which is great. I have specific subgenres that I tend to lean more towards, and social horror is absolutely one of them. How do I explain what social horror is? Because it's kind of difficult to explain. I found this article from Book Riot, and it really kind of helped me categorize the different tropes and themes within social horror in a way that makes sense to me. So I'm going to use that as a guide to talk about social horror, and I'll link the article down below if you're interested in reading it. According to this article, social horror combines elements of suspense as well as horror to contextualize the obvious and the not so obvious biases in society. And according to this article, social horror can then be broken down into 4 different subcategories of horror. I know, it's a lot,
Are we in class? Do you have your pens? Do you have your notebooks?
Those 4 subcategories are Suburbia gone wrong, race and gentrification, class, exploitation and post-colonization, and technology malfunction. I still have some questions about these different subcategories, and so I'm actually going to leave out the last one, technology malfunction, because as of now, I honestly don't know the difference between that and techno thriller. And I also want to do a video about those type of books as well. Another kind of book that I'm not going to be discussing today, though it does kind of meld its way throughout social horror, is dystopian novels. But I think dystopian novels are really a thing of their own, and I want to make a video about adult dystopian novels in particular. So I will be doing that at some point in the future, probably at the end of this year. And I also want to mention that a lot of these books do have crossover into other genres, so just keep that in mind as we go through. I will break these books up into the chapters down below so it's easier to navigate through. If you are watching on your phone, you can easily double click with 2 fingers, and that'll take you to the next chapter. And with that being said, let's get into the books. I want to start with Suburbia Gone Wrong. And the first book that I want to discuss within this category is The Girl Next Door by Jack Ketchum. It's also based upon a true story. It's a fictionalized version of a true case. So it does kind of border on that true crime category, as well as just really insane horror, body horror, really graphic descriptions. Trigger warnings for all of these, I should say, in advance. For every single book I'm going to talk about, just look up trigger warnings. This is the story of 2 sisters whose parents have tragically died in an accident and are sent to live with their distant aunt in Suburbia. The older sister in particular is held captive and brutally abused. Brutally. Very much graphic content in here. But we're following this through the framework or the perspective of the neighborhood boy who is friends with this aunt's boys and has this moral dilemma of, is he going to let this happen or is he going to intervene? And the fact that this is based on a true story makes it even harder to read. It's absolutely devastating, but well told. The next book that I want to talk about in this category is We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver. This book completely destroyed me. Destroyed me. So I want to put a very strong warning in here. There is difficult language in here as well. Obviously, like I said, look up trigger warnings. But this is the story about Kevin and his parents, in particular his mother Ava, who we are getting the perspective of for the entire story in epistolary form. So as the reader, we are reading the letters that she has written to her husband about what's going on with their son. At the beginning of this novel, you know Kevin has done something absolutely terrible, and in fact, he has been the perpetrator of a school mass killing. We're following all points in time around Kevin, his upbringing, his parents, before, after, but then at the very end, we get the actual scene of the crime. But it's very clear that Kevin absolutely has a personality disorder, and Ava doesn't know if it's because she never actually wanted a child when she had him, and maybe those feelings rubbed off on him, and he had that feeling since birth of not feeling loved, or was he born like that, and the way he behaved created the reaction from Ava. So it's very much a nature versus nurture discussion here. If you liked Saving Noah by Lucinda Berry, I would recommend this book. I think you would enjoy this. Again, though, very disturbing. Now, this next one I didn't love as much, but it's a very specific reason for me, and I think other people would enjoy this one, so I'm going to recommend it as well, and that is Comfort Me with Apples by Catherine M. Valente. This is a quintessential Suburbia gone wrong. This is a novella. It's very short, and we're following Sophia, who is just living this blissful existence in this perfect gated community called Arcadia, I believe. Everything's perfect. She's perfect. It's almost too perfect. She lives this glorious life in this house that doesn't quite fit her, but it's just fine because she loves her husband and she trusts him. But he's gone for business a lot. As we go through the chapters, we learn about the rules of this community, and there's a lot of rules in here. Something just doesn't quite add up for Sophia. At one point, something clicks in her mind, and she starts to ask questions, and what she discovers is not what she expected. I can't tell you why I didn't like this one. I think it's well written. There's just it has to do with the twist, the part that I don't like. But then again, that's just me. So if you're interested, give it a shot. It's super short and quick to read. Another suburban social horror that I have not read yet, but I do want to mention because it's pretty quintessential as well, is the Stepford Wives. So that is one that I definitely want to get to, but have not yet read at this point. And now we're going to move on to the subcategory of race and gentrification. The first book in this category that I want to talk to you about is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. This is absolutely just that. It's talking about race. It's talking about gentrification. We're following Sydney. She lives in this neighborhood in Brooklyn that has been a Black neighborhood for a long time. And then out of the blue, it seems like her neighbors are just moving out and leaving without saying anything, without giving a reason, saying goodbye, anything. And they're this very tight-knit community. And then white families are slowly but surely infiltrating. She goes on a walking tour one day just to kind of get, step back and look at her community from an objective perspective. And she meets this guy named Theo, and she and Theo become friends. Theo is white. He's also just moved into the neighborhood. She starts to express her feelings to Theo about what's going on. A family that was really close to her just up and left. She couldn't understand why they wouldn't tell her they were leaving. She and Theo start to dig deeper and ask more and more questions. Then as the reader, you're not sure, are they barreling down this paranoid rabbit hole, or is there some kind of conspiracy going on? I will say the ending of this is a little over the top, but it is intentionally over the top as it is proving a point, and it makes its point very strongly. So that is When No One Is Watching. Okay, the next book I want to talk to you about in the category of race and gentrification is All Her Little Secrets by Wanda M. Morris. This novel is following Elise Littlejohn, who seemingly has it all. She's a Black woman. She's got an Ivy League education. She has a higher up position in a law firm as an attorney. She's got amazing friends and family. She even has like a side little thing going on with her boss, Michael, a white man. It's just kind of for fun, and she likes it that way. One day she's going to meet Michael in his office for a meeting and finds him dead and murdered. Elise also has some stuff in her past that she's not quite proud of or that she doesn't want to draw attention to. And so she says, you know what, I'm just going to step back and let somebody else find him. I don't want to deal with the police. I don't want to have to tell them anything about myself that I don't need to. I don't want to get caught up in this mess. And so she does just that. But he, of course, is eventually found, and when the police do investigate, the secret that she maybe has seen the body or maybe had been having an affair with him comes out through the investigation. Then she gets promoted to his position, which looks even more suspect. And she's elated to be able to take this position, but at the same time, it just doesn't feel right. It seems like there were plenty of other people who should have had that before she did. And she starts to investigate the motives of the higher ups in the company. Gets tangled in this web of deceit. Her past gets exposed. It's a big old mess and a fun ride. The next book about race and gentrification that I want to discuss with you is When the Reckoning Comes by LaTanya McQueen. In this book, we're following Mira, a Black woman who is going back to her southern hometown for a plantation-style wedding. Literally, this wedding is taking place at this old plantation that has been reconstructed and rebuilt into this beautiful, like, event space, but the blood-soaked ground of this plantation and the history of its land may come back to haunt them. She also reconnects with her old best friends who she lost after something happened in the past there that also had to do with the land surrounding this plantation. One of those friends is the one who is getting married, and she of course is white and doesn't see how this is problematic. Her other friend, Jessie, she kind of had this unrequited love for as kids. Then something happened at this plantation that almost led to getting him arrested and accused of something that he did not commit. And so when she walked away from that, she just left it in the past behind her, and now she has to confront it. It had so much to say, and it was just very well written and well executed. The next book that I want to discuss is one that I've recently read, and that is Lakewood by Megan Giddings. This story is following Lena, who is a young Black millennial college student, and suddenly her grandmother dies, and it exposes all of this debt that her family has. And she feels so much pressure to help out her mother. And so she drops out of college and she decides to take this job as a medical experimentee. It's too good to be true. First of all, this is set in Michigan, where I'm from, and it's set in the town of Lakewood, which I honestly don't know if that's a real town. It's not one that I've heard of. She gets offered this job. It sounds too good to be true. All she has to do is go in and take these pills, tell them about the side effects. She gets medical coverage. She gets paid extremely well. She gets housing, and she's like, okay, I'll do this because I want to take care of my family. I want to be able to take care of them. Some of the experiments that she's involved in are as innocuous as changing the color of your eyes, but also can be as grand as curing dementia. The other group of people who are also being experimented upon, something's happened to them that she is uncomfortable with. And as she gets more and more uncomfortable, she has to face this idea of how far is she going to go in order to protect her own family. So this book really does talk about the moral dilemma that working class people have had to face and how far someone will go for the sake of the people they love, but also the historical horror that has been forced on Black bodies in the name of science. And historically, that has happened. Not just Black bodies, but Black and brown bodies, people of color. So I love the social commentary in this one. And the last book in this category that I want to discuss is The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Dalila Harris. Now, this one's a little bit different than the rest of these recommendations in the sense that it's kind of gotten more of a literary style to its narrative. In this story, we're following Nella, and she works at a publishing house called Wagner Books. She's the only Black girl in her office, and for a long time, she's kind of, tried to make hints, make references, say, hey, maybe we could get a little bit more color in the office. Maybe we could do this, maybe we could do that. And her comments have just kind of been brushed under the rug. Nobody's really paying attention. So she's a little disappointed in that, but she carries on. And then one day they get a new girl, and her name is Hazel, another Black woman. And she is so happy to see Hazel there. Immediately she's like, okay, we're gonna connect. You're going to understand me more than all of these other people around here. Hazel seems awesome. Everyone else thinks she's awesome too. And then Hazel starts kind of rising up in the social ranks throughout Wagner, and their dynamic kind of changes a little bit because Nella gets jealous. Then Nella starts receiving notes that are threatening that say, leave Wagner now, whom she can only assume is coming from Hazel. Meanwhile, we're also getting interlaced chapters from a different perspective that is unknown to us. And as you're reading, you don't know how that connects to the story, how that connects to Nella. But once you get to the end, it all comes together and it all makes sense. It makes the story bigger than just this one workplace. It kind of fills in the gaps between this workplace and the rest of the world, while also making a very strong, provocative point. The next category I want to talk to you about is class exploitation and post-colonization. Now, this is where I feel like the whole class exploitation element, I feel like this is where we could fit in dystopian novels. But like I said, we're not going to get into that now, but stay subscribed if you're interested in seeing that in the future. Let's talk about a couple of books that are also in this category. The first book that I want to talk to you about is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This is my favorite Stephen Graham Jones book that I have read. I think I've read like 3 or 4 of his now. Not too many, but by far, in a way, love this one the most. It is terrifying. This is a revenge novel, but it also has to do with cultural identity and the cost of breaking from tradition. We're following 4 American Indian men. Together, they experienced this disturbing event in their past, in their childhood. They walked away from it, they left their reservation, and they continued to lead their lives separate from their identifying culture that they grew up with. But it's gonna come back to bite them in the ass. They are being tracked by this entity that is hellbound for revenge. And they're helpless as the culture and traditions that they left behind come back to get them in this very violent way. Yeah, the ending of this book had me, like, it blew my mind. I wanted to say literally, but it didn't obviously literally blow it, but like, holy cow. The ending of this is insane. And it's absolutely terrifying. Highly recommend. And I have one last book to talk to you about, and that is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. In this book, we're following Noemi. She is a socialite in Mexico, and she's beautiful, has this easy life. And one day she gets a call from her cousin who's a newlywed. It's this absolutely disturbing call saying, something's not right here. I just moved in with my new husband and his family, and I'm fearing for my life. I need you. I need you. There's this mysterious doom that is clouding her new marriage. And so Noemi heads to High Place, which is this distant house in the Mexican countryside, to go see what the hell is going on with her cousin. I loved the body horror in this book. The body horror was so freaking good. Noemi is mesmerized by this house and this whole idea of High Place. Is her cousin sick? Is she not really there in her mind? What's going on here? And so she tries to investigate what's happening. Before she knows it, she finds herself contemplating whether or not she is going to be able to leave this house ever again. I should mention this is also set in the 1950s, which is an era in time that I absolutely love, and there's a lot of discussion about colonization in here. And so I would recommend this one as well, and it's also one of the most freaking gorgeous covers I've ever seen. And that is going to wrap up this video today. Of course, if you have any other social horror recommendations, please let me know in the comments down below. And if you've decided to add any of these to your TBR, I'd love to hear that as well. Thank you for hanging out with me. I appreciate you guys so much. Don't forget that life is short, so read Riley. Cheers, and goodbye.